Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Tuesday, December 10th. Right now, taking a look at some organizational philosophies that I kind of want the Jaguars to adopt moving forward that I think could potentially really help them out as a franchise to find some more consistency, and really start to define what they can be as a franchise, because they've got a lot of the pieces in place. They've got the owner that's willing to spend. They've got the facilities. They've got the quarterback. They've got a lot of good young roster talent and guys on second contracts as well that are very talented. There's really no reason the Jaguars shouldn't be better, but then when you peel back the layers, I think there are some reasons that they're not better. I think probably the biggest issue they have is a lack of power structure and transparency from the top down, clear pecking order. Like, who is making all the decisions? Is it Doug? Is it Trent? And do they have the same vision? Like, you need alignment at the top between your top guys and a clear pecking order. And if there's not a clear pecking order between your GM and your head coach, those two people have to be completely aligned with their vision for the football team. Trent Baalke has been around in Jacksonville longer than Doug Peterson, right? He was here before Doug. Do they share the same core values? Do they share the same core vision for what this franchise should be? And I think the answer is clearly no, in a lot of regards. And we can take a look at that stuff. But I think you need two people, or one, maybe an EVP, and then a GM and a coach below them that have the same vision for the organization, for the football team, for the culture. And I think you need transparency from the top down. Like, every single person needs to know why they're doing what they're doing, how it's going to impact the ability for the franchise to sustain success. And eventually, the goal is to win a Super Bowl. Like, that is the goal. And it just needs to all be transparent. I don't think you've had that here for a long time. I think that Tom Coughlin was pretty transparent, but he obviously was not following the CBA rules. I mean, he was consistently violating rules, and so that obviously led to his dismissal and his inability to keep things on the tracks here, even though the team drafted overall fairly well when Coughlin was the Jaguars' EVP. Obviously, they took Leonard Fournette in 2017 at the top, which, not a good pick, but a pick that year, I mean, I don't think that they make it as far as they do without Leonard Fournette. Cam Robinson. They had some good drafts under Tom Coughlin. Pulling it up here. Yeah. So, yeah, Leonard Fournette, Cam Robinson in the second round, DeJuan Smoot. Those were three good picks right there. And you had some misses. And, D.D. Westbrook was a player a lot of folks expected to be a lot better than he was, including myself. And then you didn't have much in the way of picks beyond that. You had Blair Brown in the fifth, Jalen Myrick in the seventh, Marcus Williams in the seventh. So, I mean, not a ton of picks there. That was his first draft with the Jaguars. 2018, this is one that kind of cost them. And, Taven Bryan was a big whiff, obviously. But DJ Chark is still in the league. Injuries really kind of derailed his career. Ronnie Harrison is still in the league. And you had some misses, but you also drafted Logan Cook, right? And then 2019 actually ended up being a very good draft. Josh Hines-Allen, Jawan Taylor, Josh Oliver, Quincy Williams, Raquel Armstead, who he had health and injury issues, Gardner Minshew. I mean, those drafts were not bad overall. I mean, obviously you missed in 2017 or 2018 on Taven Bryan, but I think that they had potentially a plan in place that could have worked overall, but Tom Coughlin was stuck in his ways and was fining players unnecessarily and outside of the rules. So you need some sort of organizational structure where there's transparency from the top down, and I think there was at that time with Tom Coughlin. I'm not saying bring back Tom Coughlin. I'm saying find someone who has a little bit better understanding, grip on the modern player, the modern game, whether that's the head coach, the GM, both, or an EVP, and have those people have the exact same vision for the organization. That's going to be critical moving forward. And to find those people, like, I think Shad Khan needs to have a different process than he has, because he's not been able to properly identify folks that can lead this organization for a long period of time in a proper manner. Um, some more specific things, like, don't overdraft needs, and I'm not saying that they have consistently done that at all. I'm just saying that that's how teams really get in trouble, and I do expect the Jaguars to make changes. If they don't, I mean, none of this matters anyways. This entire conversation is moot. But do not overdraft needs. Like, that is one of the quickest ways teams can absolutely fall apart, and one of the quickest ways you can find the door, unfortunately. So do not overdraft needs. And the reason I bring that up is so many fans, not just Jaguars fans, because I also run Rogue Football where I talk about the NFL draft. I talk about other teams all the time. So many fans, their first comment will be on a mock draft or on a conversation. Well, our biggest need is corner. Why would we draft a receiver? Our biggest need is this. Why would we draft this? Do not overvalue and overdraft needs. In my opinion, if you're really worried about needs, like right now, team needs, that's where free agency comes into place. And you can try to address needs in the draft while also getting value, right? But you shouldn't, if you have let's say the person's talking about, well, we need a corner. If you have a corner, let's say in tier 5, or a wide receiver in tier 2, and you need corner, you don't draft that corner in tier 5 over the tier 2 wide receiver just because you need the cornerback position more. Like, you need to stick to your board. You need to stick to your guns a little bit more than that. Otherwise, you're going to end up drafting players that don't work out consistently because you're overdrafting needs. And I'm sorry, Murray's going crazy in the background here. One of her friends must be passing by us. I would also say do not value needs over creating superpowers, which kind of goes into the same thing. But like, I don't think that making sure every single area of your roster is more important or more valuable than having a superpower, right? So like, let's say you don't have the best group of corners or the best secondary in the world. If you have an elite front, that can cover up a lot of those issues, right? If you have 4 linemen up front that can dominate in a decent rotation, that can cover up a lot of the issues with your cornerbacks, to where if you just get decent play at corner and safety, then you can survive and thrive. I would also say, like, look at the Bengals, for example. They have not had complete football teams, and obviously they're struggling a little bit right now, but just specifically on the offensive side of the ball for them, they've been able to create a superpower with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, where they haven't always had the best offensive lines. They haven't always had the best running game. They haven't always had like a great tight end or super deep group of receivers. But if you're able to create that one thing that keeps you in every game, that can be just as valuable or even more valuable than trying to create this team that doesn't have any holes anywhere ever. If you're trying to do everything at once, you can end up doing nothing. So again, in all my roster building talk, I do try to manage all of the needs, but I'm also, again, trying to make sure we can create something that gives us an advantage over our opponent, which right now, the way I've been looking at it, that's adding, whether it be through free agency or the draft, but adding another legitimate starting receiver to pair with, starting outside receiver to pair with Brian Thomas Jr. Like yesterday, I talked about drafting Teteroa McMillan, T-Mac. Having those two types of guys would create a dynamic, dangerous, vertical strike passing offense with Trevor Lawrence out on the field. I would also say I want the Jaguars to value skill and traits more than just pure traits. I think under Trent Baalke, it's been more of a traits based business. And I think traits matter. They absolutely do in the NFL. There's no question about it. Like your athleticism, your size, your length, arm length at certain positions, most positions, it all does matter. It all has an impact, but skill has an impact as well. And if you just go back to 2022, Trent Baalke obviously overvalued pure traits with Trayvon Walker, who has developed into a good player. There's no question about that. Aiden Hutchinson had traits and he had skill, right? No, he didn't have the prototypical Trent Baalke traits. He didn't have the crazy arm length, right? But he had everything else in his arsenal. Like he was a great athlete coming out with good size and so much skill as compared to where the Jaguars went with that pick, right? So you've got to value skill and traits and find the best harmony of both of those things. Um, this is another one where I'm not necessarily saying the Jaguars have gone too far in either direction here, but you don't need choir boys. You just need players who love the game and have football character, right? What they do off the field, as long as they're not like criminals or anything like that, doesn't really matter. But as long as when they're in that building and when it's time to be focused, they have that high football character. They hold themselves accountable, they hold their teammates accountable, and they work their butts off towards a common goal. And then finally, understanding roster management just a little bit more than Trent Baalke has. It's been egregious. Looking at his roster management over the years. I mean, Walker Little is a prime example. You draft him in the second round in 2021. You don't let him start until the final year of his contract. It just did not make any sense. You know, mismanagement of cornerback this year. You sign Ronald Darby, so you're good to go at corner. Like, seriously? The Eric Armstead situation, that was really poor roster management. Whether it be Trent Baalke or Doug Peterson or Ryan Nielsen or Eric Armstead, whoever wanted him to sign to play defensive end, that was horrible roster management. Because if Eric Armstead, if you're signing him and he's telling you he wants to play defensive end, you should not be paying him what you're going to pay him, right? So if it's his fault, it's still your fault. And if it's your fault, right? Bottom line. Overinvestments at linebacker over the years under Trent Baalke. There's just been so many egregious roster management errors. So those are kind of the things I've been looking at. Organizational philosophies and kind of identities that I want the Jaguars to adopt moving forward. That'll do it here. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Y'all have a good one.